Guest is a talented comedian who can be seen starting tomorrow at the Comedy Castle. Lord, I wish I was there now. Please welcome, for the first time on this program, comedian Dennis Wolfberg.
Hey! Thank you very much. How you doing? Good, well, very exciting. Doing comedy on national television is very exciting, following an 80-year-old golfer, unusual. Last week, I'm not making this up, I played an old age home in Columbia, South Carolina. You want to talk old? I had a woman in my audience celebrating her 102nd birthday. In fact, at the end of the show, they brought in a cake to celebrate this event, but in a stroke of incredible misjudgment, they gave her these candles that you could not blow out. A brilliant gag for a woman who had no concept of reality and blowing her brains up and spitting all over the cake. It was disgusting. And then she cut a slice and asked if I would like some. I said I'm trying to cut down on saliva in my diet. In fact, it's not cake now, it's pudding, thanks to you. 102, what would you buy a woman 102? 50 is gold, 75 is diamond, 102 is oxygen, something that'll help her breathe. And this was a comedy show. She didn't laugh at anything I said, and I said something to her I thought was so funny. I said, 102, I'll bet there's no peer pressure. That's comedy. I have not always been a comedian. I was a school teacher for 12 years here in New York City. A job that I began with great enthusiasm, a fervor, give me the children, I'll save the world. But after a couple of months, I began to fantasize about force-feeding them asbestos because they drive me nuts. I taught 6th grade in part of New York called the South Bronx, a neighborhood that socioeconomically ranks under Calcutta, to give you an idea. People from India would say South Bronx, what a hellhole. And I taught in a school that even by South Bronx standards was a difficult one. Any elementary school that has its own coroner. It's unusual. Reading was my main responsibility, 6th grade, and I say reading, my kids had difficulty remembering my name, which is Wolfberg. You wouldn't think all that tough. And the kids call me Wolfman and Wolfgang. I had a kid first day of school one year call me Wolfbutt. He said, hey, Wolfbutt, we got homework tonight. And I said, the name is not Wolfbutt, it's Wolfberg, and what's more, it is Mr. Wolfberg. And the kid said, how am I supposed to know you're married? Then they gave me the slow class for 6 consecutive years. Not special, just slow. I used to think of them as stationary, motionless. They grouped them according to intelligence tests, and the whole concept of intelligence testing always amused me because at the low end of the intelligence spectrum, where I taught, they had categories they were called, in order, I'm not making these words up, they're called a moron, imbecile, and idiot. This amused me because conceivably you could have an imbecile who was working very hard to become a moron. I could imagine a kid running home one day saying, I'm a moron! That's how we knew you could do it! 6 consecutive years. I had them all. I had a kid, Frank Daly. These are true kids. First day of school, we fill out standard roll book information. So I say, Frank, tell me your birthday. He says, March the 21st. I say, what year? He says, every year. Truancy. My kids were truant beyond all human imagination, and they come in with the most brazen excuses. I taught 6th grade. I had a kid who missed 2 days and told me he'd had a stroke. I congratulated him on a remarkable recovery. To be back in school 2 days after a stroke is an unbelievable commitment to education. I had one kid who missed 3 weeks and told me he'd been on jury duty. Can you believe it? They assume you believe anything they tell you. And when I said I would teach them, at the 6th grade level, I would teach them how to write what they call original research reports. And I say original research despite the fact in 12 years, I never got anything handed in that even remotely qualified as original research. You give them a subject, they go to the nearest encyclopedia and they become stenographers. and they hand this in assuming you cannot detect blatant plagiarism. I had a kid, James Drucker, hands in a report on the country Peru that began with the sentence, get this, Peru is epistemologically, 6th grade, attempting to deal with the long-range effects of a protracted economic depression. I say to myself, might this be copied? Who's to say? This kid don't talk but put a pen in his hand. He's another Hemingway. What a metamorphosis. I had never seen a transformation like this. The kid was functionally subliterate and comes into my class as a transfer student from a prison release program. What a delight. Having stabbed his last teacher, a joy to have him on my roster. With a note from the guidance counselor that said James is socially disadvantaged, which in the South Bronx is a euphemism for criminally insane. Socially disadvantaged, 6th grade, show and tell he brought in a subpoena. And the guidance counselor said you must gear the curriculum to meet his needs. I figured I'll teach him plea bargaining. This will certainly be helpful. Gear the curriculum. I'll teach him how to write a good ransom note. This will certainly come in handy. If you ever want to see your son alive again, comma. Thank you very much.
Very nice to have you here. It's very funny.
Thank you very, David.
You doing all right? Things going well for you?
Things are going terrific. I noticed my hair I'm a little self-conscious about my hair.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think people appreciate what it's like when you start losing a little. Tonight I asked my wife, how does my hair look? And she said, they look nice.
Is it true that your wife is also a comedian?
My wife is also a comedian. Jeannie McBride is her name. And
Jeannie McBride?
Jeannie McBride.
How does that work out, having a...
Well, for the moment, things might change a little. She is expecting.
Oh, that's nice. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you very much. Kind of simple. And so we travel frequently together. We haven't been married all that long to have a child expecting. Although we lived together for a little while. A year and a half we lived in sin. Well, the Bible says premarital sex is a sin. My wife says the way we did it, it was a crime.
Okay. Well, tell you what, we'll do another commercial and then we'll be right back.